Okay, wonderful.
Brain
Any other
brain is
viewpoint?
under development. Abhi, there is a certain age of proper development. So there is a option to change or mold their brain.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other reflection? There is one very
Yes, ma'am.
important
Yes,
aspect here.
ma'am. Yeah, that's
Request everyone to put yourselves on mute, otherwise it becomes very difficult to interact. The person who wants to talk can unmute and start talking,
yes,
right?
ma'am.
Yes.
Hello.
Right.
Hello.
Hello,
Yes,
ma'am.
hello. How are you? I'm Pavneet this side.
I'm
Uh,
good. Yes.
yes, yes. Actually, teacher is the second mother of the child, and it is the responsibility of the teacher when a child is handed over to him or her that she is expected to shape her in such a way that he or she will become a good citizen, a good human being, and a good person in itself.
Absolutely. Thank you. So it's
Thank
not
you.
only the responsibility you are saying, not only the responsibility of the child, but how we, what we teach him or her. Right.
Yes,
Any
in a
other
pos-
question?
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Basically, it talks about the impact of environment to the
Okay.
child.
Yes. Effect of environment. Absolutely. So, what are we actually aiming at? And how would we actually define this particular thing? We know this is said by B.F. Skinner. He did a
Yes.
lot of experiments on behaviorism. How
Uh,
do we
hi.
actually understand this?
Hi, my name is Natasha.
Hello.
So we basically speak this point at a point like, nobody's born a Miss Universe or nobody's born a criminal. So the things that they have molded over the past, whatever has happened, the environmental factors, the internal factors, what they shaped as, they turn out to be like that. So even usually they say, especially they speak about this a lot during the terrorism, where they pick up children to turn them into terrorists because they have a lot of time to mold them into something. So in a similar lines, you want to mold them beautifully, you give me a child and I'll mold them into whatever you want. It's like that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for your insightful, remarks on this. So, moving ahead with this concept in mind, I would just like to touch upon the nature and nurture concept. When we are talking about children or even we adults, we have passed through that phase and we have shaped up ourselves in particular ways. We have developed our personalities. But what exactly led to our personality development? It may be a number of factors. What we are born with, that's your heredity, that's what your genetic makeup is. But beyond that, there is a world in this earth which is shaping your behavior constantly. Either whatever you're observing, we'll come to the stages and see where observation is a big criteria for a child. Through observation, through trial and error, through punishment and reward. So it is not only the child's perception, but what other people are teaching or infusing into him or her. Okay, so please keep this mind throughout. The child counseling is not only about the person, but also the environment through which he has been, brought up. The family, the peer group, the teachers, everyone is taken into consideration. So it is more holistic, it is not individual. If I have to give you an example, when an adult comes to you, it is more like it's one to one. You of course look into the background and family setting and everything, but major work happens between you and the person under concern. But for children, it is more like a holistic thing. You take into consideration filial therapy as well. The family is incorporated sometimes, along with bringing about certain positive changes in the child. So it's a very difficult job to do. Okay, I move on. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do we define childhood? So, according to the APA dictionary, it's the period between infancy or from birth till the age of puberty. When puberty strikes, before that, it's considered to be childhood. And we see that even childhood has different stages. Infancy is more about wholly dependent on the parents, and then we move on to a stage where children start learning about certain things, knowing their world, knowing who they are, and then they develop into adolescence phase, or the phase of puberty. So this entire phase is considered to be a learning phase, growth phase, and that's why the quote, you give a child and I'll shape it into whatever you want. So the upbringing, the observation, the peer group, everything will contribute equal with equal weightage while the child is growing up. And we have different phases of childhood. We start off with 3 years plus, and then we have the middle age, the middle childhood, which is from 7 to 8 years to 10 years, and then we have the late childhood, which is still puberty. So these are the three major stages, and you will see an array of problems or issues in three different phases. While we are discussing, I'll discuss further into it. Okay, next slide. Okay, seeing this picture over here, what do you think? How do you think children react to their environment? If you could just put quickly into the chat box. Observing this picture, you can see a girl touching the ground and two of the children jumping high into the sky. So how do you think it relates to you, or does it elicit any kind of childhood memories inside you? If you can quickly write in the chat box. And how does it differ from being an adult? If in the same case, when it's raining and the sun is out right after the rains, how would we react when we are on the road? And how are these children reacting when they are in the similar situation? Okay. Carefree, fun, bonding, curious, enjoyment, exploring. So it's more of fun, enjoyment, and everything. But now understand or visualize an adult walking down the street. How would he or she behave? Adult would be more cautious, yes. Rather than, jumping in joy, maybe the person will be happy inside, but the expression will be much more controlled. Preoccupied, yes. Curious, okay. Adult will be more cautious and a little reserved, yes. So we see if behavioral outputs are very different in both these phases. Even an adolescents would behave very differently while they're walking down, this particular situation. So our handling of children while we are counseling them will also be very, very different, because they are all over the place. They are bubbly, they are happy, they are curious. There will be all traits of positivity in them. They might be very active, which teachers may mistake it for being hyperactive. So we need to channelize certain traits which we see most often in children. Moving further, next slide. Okay, so we come to this particular module where you need to understand the Piaget stages of cognitive development. I'm pretty sure you must have gone through these. So from birth to nearly 2 years, it's called the sensory motor stage, where you will see a lot of anxiety in the children, separation anxiety, as we say. How do we predict this separation anxiety in children, those who are much more into the later stages of life, like maybe 4 or 5 years when they are going to kindergarten? What is your basic observation there? The separation anxiety, where they just don't want to leave their parents and attend school. That's the most common issue you will come across if you're into school counseling, or if you're counseling children, young children. A lot of parents will come and tell you that my child doesn't want to go to school, refuses. So school refusal has its root with this kind of anxiety, separation anxiety? Can someone highlight, or is anyone here who have come across this particular situation?
Ma'am, can I go ahead?
Yes, O3.
Yeah, ma'am, children basically throw tantrums, and they will be always crying and not being attentive and being
Right.
restless.
Mm-hmm.
These might be a few symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other person who have come across this particular situation where you had children not coming to school, school phobia, uh, denial to come to school?
Ma'am, they'll tell they have stomach pain or any
Yes,
other psychosomatic symptoms. Like I have stomach pain, so I don't want to go to school. I
absolutely.
feel feverish, so I don't want to go to school. So these are the
Yes.
common symptoms I came across.
Mhm. But
Ma'am,
yes.
yeah, it's my personal thing that always whenever my son is getting to school, he will went to the washroom and okay, I can't because my stomach is like I'm getting a lot of sounds. I can't. So whatever the things we can't neglect, they will take that as that tantrum and will avoid to get school.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for sharing. They will look for excuses and they cannot process what's happening inside them. Maybe some kind of threat, maybe a threat from the teacher may also induce this kind of school refusal, but there can be also underlying tension or anxiety in them. So the stronger the anxiety or the separation anxiety, the stronger will be the need to refuse school and not come to school. I'll take this up a little later when we are discussing the activities. I had experienced several of the children coming with the school refusal problem, but with certain creative techniques, they came out with the actual problem and they started coming to school again normally. So most of the school refusal will stem out from a phase between 2 to 3 years. So you need to understand how to take the case history from that period of time. If you see there was high social anxiety or kind of separation anxiety, it may indicate that there were something which were not resolved and still the child is denying school due to certain pressure, maybe some kind of a threat in the school or some kind of a pressure from the parents. So a lot of case history has to be taken surrounding that. Okay, next, coming to 2 to 5 years, most common problems over here, you will find language development, aggressiveness, restlessness related to ADHD and all that, attention deficit disorder. All these will surface at this period of time, and you need a lot of creative strategies and group therapies in order to handle this particular stage, because it's more of the playway method which we incorporate at this point of time rather than actually talk therapy, because young children will not engage in very serious talking because they don't have enough skills, interactional skills to express what they are feeling or why they are feeling so it is always good to have playway techniques, art therapy techniques in your counseling sessions in order to carry on with these particular problems during the 2 to 5 years of age. There will be a lot of pretend play, so it will be a benefit to you or a boon to you to incorporate puppets, incorporate pretend play, incorporate group therapies in this particular stage of childhood. Next, we have the lot who is a little more mature, little more aware of their surroundings. They know who they are, they know what their skills are. So you can safely incorporate art therapies, and you can incorporate quizzes, you can incorporate games. A lot of games are there which can also help in bonding, understanding, and then bringing out the best in the child and understanding where the child is having trouble. So 7 to 11 years, more or less, the problems are similar. Again, there is a high chance of school refusal if you have had issues when you were younger. But apart from that, there can be residual learning problems. There can be certain peer related issues where there's a lot of aggressiveness. Then there can be other associated emotional aspects as well, where parents are maybe getting divorced, or there's a lot of violence at home. Maybe there has been some form of trauma in the child. So this is the stage where it comes out in various possible ways. And the last stage before puberty, it is more or less, it shifts from being more physical to being more emotional, because that's when all the changes are taking place. That's when the child is learning about themselves much more in deeper ways. They start arguing with their parents. Many a times I've I had complaints from parents that they have suddenly become very egoistic. They suddenly become very withdrawn from the parents. They have become overconfident about it. Okay, so these are a few landmarks which you will observe in these 4 stages of childhood. And the other important 2 words which you would come across are the milestones and developmental tasks. So whenever you are taking a case history, we will send you a brief outline of a case history. So on that, what you do is take down all the developmental stages, whether the child has met all the developmental tasks or not, whether the child was able to throw a ball when he or she was 2 years old, or were able to talk when they reached that milestone. So all these stages have their own unique milestones. In case the child doesn't meet that milestone, that means there may be underlying issues which may result in the present problem. So a detailed case history in case of children are required. Whether there were any developmental problems, whether there were any family disruptions, whether there were any major shifts in their lifestyle. All these will contribute a lot to your findings later on. And which stage of life it occurred, that also, if you can mark it, it's a very important sign in your counseling sessions. Okay, another word which I have highlighted in red is observation. During this period of time, 2 to 6 years approximately, or 5 years approximately, this period is dominated by exploring, and whatever they will observe, they start copying. That's the time when they are understanding themselves, understanding the world. So whatever they observed around them, whether it's through peers, whether it's through adults, their parents, their grandparents, their teachers, whatever they are exposed to, they start observing and copying it. I hope you know the Bandura's Bobo doll experiment, where children were taken into a room, shown a very violent kind of violent play activity of another child, who was being recorded. And then when they were separated in 2 rooms with the similar toys, the children who saw that aggressive the clipping, they were more aggressive with their toys as compared to children who were not exposed to that video. So we get an instant proof that observation is very powerful, especially in children, because they have not developed their logical reasoning. So whatever they see in adults, they will start copying it, because they feel that's the way you should be reacting. I'll be giving you a small example here. Say for instance, a father, whenever the wife, your husband and wife, whenever the wife is asking, would you like to have some tea, or would you, the person has come back from office, he's always frustrated, always frowning, and whenever the wife asks the person for something or the other, strikes a conversation, the person is very rude, extremely rude. That's what the child is observing. That is how people should behave with each other. He doesn't know what is right and wrong. He's learning about the world around him or her. So what they start doing is become irritated at the smallest context. Whenever they want something, they'll throw a tantrum. You'll see a lot of children who are nagging. It's because try to find out what the parental dynamics is. It's extremely important, but very difficult at the same time, because parents will not come and tell you everything what's happening between them. Very few parents actually open up. Okay, the temperament of parents are the first thing which the children take up. So if you have aggressive children, if you have very very angry children in the classroom or in the house, try to understand what they are exposed to. They may not be naturally like that. The environment or their observation may have led them to believe that if I don't like anything, I can just scream and shout and means make my way out. That's the easiest way. Okay. Second point I would like to highlight is there is not enough reward or punishment system in the house. The parents either are overindulgent or they are underindulgent. That means it might be very strict environment or might be a very lenient environment. So in these children, the balance is missing. So again, when you are taking case as history, try to find out how they react. Give them situations like if your child is doing certain things which are not right, how do you react? What do you tell him? If the parents sometimes say that I hit the child, that means the child is also learning that behavior. If I don't like something, if someone has done wrong with me, I'm going to hit the person so that he or she doesn't do it again. So this observation part is very powerful and very, very common in childhood. And that's how they start shaping their behavior. If there is proper intervention and correction at that point of time, they generally come out of that aggressiveness. But if they are not guided in the proper way, this remains with them even into adulthood, even into late adolescence, where you see a lot of self-harm, self-infliction also surfaces. So it is not only about attention-seeking behavior when you see a sign of self-harm or self-hurt. It may also be that their anger or their hurt has not been channelized properly, or they has been mistreated in their childhood, and it may be a repercussion of what they have been experiencing or how to handle it. So just look out for these signs if you have come across such issues. Next slide. Okay, this I feel is extremely important while we are dealing with present day children, because times have evolved a lot from what even our parents have been exposed to. Now, what about free play? If I have to ask you about free play or a play time for children now these days, how would you put it? Irrespective of Corona, irrespective of this particular phase, if I have to talk in general, what do you feel free play has shaped up to be?
Mobile time.
Mobile
Very
time.
structured,
Yes.
I would say. Structured, yeah.
Yes, structured, very important point. Structured. Mobile addiction, TV, mobile, Netflix. Children are exposed to these things so early in life. Even my daughter, like when I've been working all throughout, so I had very little time in the house. And whenever she was fussy about food, I used to give her the YouTube cartoons to watch where she would settle down. And I've seen in almost all mothers, because we don't have that patience. Sorry, I'm still not sure about that. Internet, mobile addiction, transferred from playground to online, yes. Irrespective of this COVID situation. Even if we talk about before COVID, what exactly do we, define free play as? And if we compare it even with our childhood, the 80s kid or the 70s kid, we are all approximately to that age group. So our childhood was very different from what they are experiencing now. Even for me, I first came across a mobile phone when I was in college, when I was in first year of college, still sooner than my parents. My parents had never heard of it. It was like a dream for them. It was not it was non-existent. So for each of our generations, we see there's a lot of changes, especially this, the blend transition of this particular phase, especially the modern children who are born maybe like 10 years back. They have seen a lot of changes. Free play is a missing. In fact, it's only during school hours that they are going and playing maybe in the background, that also only for 40 minutes. But then when they come back home, it's only about flats and then staying in the room, or maybe going for sports if you are allotted for a class. But that free play, playing on your own, playing with your peer group, not being monitored by anyone, is wholly missing, I feel. The children now these days are monitored 24/7 wherever they are going, with whom they are mixing, with whom they are playing. Everything is being monitored by parents, and it is in fact not a very healthy practice, because they never learn on their own. We are always telling them what to do. We are telling them, don't mix with this particular child, he or she is not good. They never find out, they never venture out, they never find out that this child can be harmful for me. So they lose that sense of judgment very early on age. They are so much dependent on others' viewpoint. And now, of course, it has fueled up because of the online classes pandemic. There's no activity at all, no free play time, no interaction with peers. Next point is changes in family settings. How do you think family has changed or evolved over time? We still live with our in-laws and our family or our parents, but somewhere it has, drastically changed over a period of time. And children growing up in nuclear family, mostly nuclear families, they just have the father, the mother, and themselves. That's it. Okay, and most often both parents are working, both of them are very busy, so what they do is get into mobile phones. This is the upcoming, what do I say, a big issue which is all over the place, whether it's a young child, whether they are in just in puberty stage. They're all addicted to internet gaming and mobiles, because it's so much available in their environment. Yes, online working mode. Even if Corona was not present, even during that time, I have come across so many parents coming and telling me that my child is too much into phones, too much into gaming. Okay, there of course, there is some parental disruption also. There's no control. There are no boundaries. So here, another note which you need to make is, how do parents actually introduce this particular gadget to them, or introduce these particular resources to them, and how they start mishandling. Where or when did they start mishandling? This, of course, when you're dealing with any form of addiction in children, especially the internet and the gaming addiction, you need to make a note of this point also. When did it start? How did it start? And how did the parents start managing that particular thing? Most of the times you will see, just in order to save their time, they will just leave the child with the particular gadget days on end, and then it becomes a habit. As we all know, it takes 21 days to form a habit, pretty less period of time. So once the habit is formed, it becomes very difficult to detach the child from it. Then we have availability of resources. If we are dealing with children, of course, they have too much now. If it's nothing wrong in it, but when they have too much, they stop valuing things. So even that part we have to take into consideration. What are the available resources around the child? And very importantly, changing of environment, whether there was any form of change in the environment through which the child has been brought up to the present situation. Has there been any major drastic changes in the lifestyle, or maybe a change of place, maybe a change of school, or any kind of incident which may have occurred in their lifetime? And yes, of course, schooling and peer group has a major influence again, because the type of peer group they are into will, of course, influence them when they are growing older. Next slide. Okay, now what is actually child counseling? I've already told you, but just to brief it up, all what I have been discussing all this while, it is not only the child, as you see, it is not only the child, but also you need to counsel the parents, you need to intervene at their level, which becomes very difficult. because many times parents won't open up in front of you, or they'll just tell you something very different from what actually is happening. So a lot of awareness programs in school, if you are a school counselor, if you're planning to take up school counseling, not only you'll be doing counseling, it's also about a lot of orientation programs for parents on parenting. Okay, so what kind of parenting is best, what can be done, or how can they be open, how can they approach you, what are the red flag areas. All these will be a major contribution in your next counseling sessions, one-to-one counseling sessions. So a lot of background work also needs to be done. Along that, peer group counseling, that would be classroom counseling, as we say. We go to classrooms, talk to all the children, find out what the dynamics is with this particular child. You know, if a child is recommended to you, it's not possible for those who are practicing in private, but for school counselors, it is more like when the teacher comes or the parent comes with a particular set of problems in the child, what we do is, of course, go to the classroom and find out the dynamics of their peer group, how they are helping each other, whether they are helping each other or not, or what kind of children this particular child is more attached to. So that will give you valuable insights. And if you feel that there is a major, adjustment issue in the classroom, a lot of times class counseling helps. Doing activities together, group counseling helps. Along with that, there are other factors also, like teachers, grandparents, all kind of filial therapy which we incorporate, where not only the parents are coming to the session, but we also often ask the grandparents to come and visit us and give them certain guidelines in order to handle the child. Even the teachers have certain meetings for which they need a little bit of aid in understanding what the problem is. And here it becomes extremely important to psycho-educate teachers as well. Like in case of autism, we only see the surface. The child doesn't interact, doesn't talk, always on his own, or becomes extremely aggressive when we tell him something to do, doesn't do his work. These are only superficial traits. But what about the actual problem? There's a major problem in the perception. The child is confused inside. That's why this problem, that's why he doesn't interact. So these levels of psychoeducation is extremely important for parents, teachers, maybe not for the peer group, but yes, support system can be incorporated for the peer group. And of course, the child, a lot of work has to be done with the child in order to make them more aware of what can be the coping strategies which they can utilize. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, now areas of concern. This I will be discussing more in details tomorrow, but this is kind of a gist. Today is more like touching upon all the areas which we'll be doing. This is more of the gist type. You see an inverted pyramid here. Majorly what we see in children are behavioral issues as well as learning issues. Maximum number of children will have behavioral issues where they will maybe fighting with others, or restlessness, or not paying attention in class, or being verbally abusive, physically abusive, or just running around the classroom too much, not settling down. And be several of these complaints from the teachers or the parents who are coming to you. The next category would be learning disorders, which is a wholly different, field of work. Not only counseling will help the child. Counseling can help in building motivation because they have a very low self-esteem, because they can't, even if they try so hard, they give up at some point of times. And then when they don't get their desired output, they easily give up. So a lot of confidence building is required through counseling here. Okay. So for learning disorders, along with special education, there might be special educators in all the schools, or they might be taking lessons, but alongside there can be counseling sessions in order to boost their self-esteem. There can be group sessions in order to boost their self-esteem needs. So that's one way of incorporating counseling for learning disorders. And other areas are more of emotional, the anxiety part, or any kind of addiction which the child is into. Addiction for them would be majorly internet and gaming. So these are the other areas which are lesser in number, of course, but due to the pandemic, that portion has also increased. They're feeling restless. Maybe they are not actually restless, but they are so anxious. There's so much of energy inside them right now. They feel anxious, they feel cranky, they start avoiding their important tasks, especially the older ones. They're getting into a lot of gaming, they're getting into a lot of kind of refusal behavior. So conduct disorders also surface at this point. And one more important part is loss and grief handling, trauma handling. There may have been incidents which were extremely threatening, that can be ranging from physical abuse to emotional abuse or to sexual abuse. All these can result in great trauma along with certain life changes. Maybe a parent got divorced, or they have witnessed some kind of crime happening, or they have witnessed some kind of natural calamity, or maybe the father is beating up the mother or something like that. So these can be a lot, these can contribute a lot of trauma to the child, and it may come out through different consequences. It may be behavioral, emotional, or a lack of concentration, or total withdrawal from others. Okay, so all these are general categories which we get in children. Any other, apart from this, if you have come across, you can quickly put down or maybe talk about it a little. Anyone who has come across anything apart from these issues which has been listed? I'll take a few of them tomorrow again in details, so that you know exactly how to go about the sessions, or how do we actually diagnose certain things. Yes?
Ma'am?
Yes, please?
Bullying and child trafficking.
Yes. Bullying and child trafficking, yes. Of course, those people who are working with children from those areas of life, of course, it is a major problem. Bullying, of course, the later childhood, the pre-adolescence phase has a very common issue of bullying. Thank you for that insight.
Abuse is another one.
And
Yes.
Abuse,
yes. Any form of abuse, as I said, can be a trauma situation for the child.
in the current corona situation, we are also getting some cases of people losing their dear ones, especially
Yes.
their, and then loss and grief they go through.
Yes.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, can we include comparisons between the students? These concerns are also increasing day by day. Can we
Yes.
include the area of concern?
Later childhood, yes, you will see a lot of children, those who are very conscious about themselves, those who have a very high expectation but low self-esteem. So in order to hide that, what they do is get into unhealthy competitions. I've had this case of two or three
self-image
children.
issues also, right? Self-image.
Of course.
Fear factor.
Yes. I've had this child. Let me just finish it before I forget. So I had this child who had this extreme low self-esteem, but he went around the entire school showing off that he's very, very popular, very aggressive, macho in that case. He was in class 6, most probably. Yes, class 6. So what happened, he went around with that image, but deep down he had issues with self-esteem. And what happened was, he was not so good in his academic field, but he was a brilliant athlete, swimming and all. He used to be very good, and he used to get a lot of appreciation from people for that. What happened next was, there was a new child in his same complex only, in the same school. When he came in and he started being equally good in swimming, what he wanted to do is drown him. That was very drastic. Maybe not purposefully, but he had so much of anger inside him due to his low self-esteem. So why I wanted to point out this is, low self-esteem may come out in different ways as well. It is not only just secluding yourself or fumbling or anxiety. It may have the opposite repercussions, being overly aggressive. Over aggression in children, most of the time I've seen that it's due to low self-esteem. The moment you start appreciating them, giving them reward systems, introducing them to responsibilities, they open up, they become a whole new person altogether. They start enjoying what they can do. Yes. Any other thing which you have come across?
Exam fear appearing for the public.
Yes, exam fear, exam anxiety. I'll talk about it a little later. Exam anxiety.
Failure is 5 comma.
Comparison, failure, all these are all related to poor self-esteem. You have to remember that, because it stems out maybe due to parental pressure or even pressure from oneself, because I have also known children who have very cooperative parents, but they themselves perceive that they need to be very good in everything. Okay, otherwise they are good for nothing from the very childhood.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
So there are cases where I have seen children not want to do well in life to punish their parents as form of anger. What does that come under?
It's agony. It's a hidden form of anger where they are not verbalizing anything, but they're just waiting for the turn. It's a kind of infliction
on an extreme self-harm or as well at some point,
Yes,
they do it, or they like in
Yes.
one case or something, there are few students who were the professor took them aside and asked them why they failed and all, and most of them answered because they're like, my parents are irritating me so much and pressurizing me so much. I knew they were going to be hurt if I failed, and that's why I did it. So that
someone is writing, that's not called sadist. That is a kind of pent-up anger which the child cannot verbalize to the parents. Okay, so there is a need for expression. In this case, if the child is open to the teacher or someone whom they are close to, there needs to be a clear form of communication between the parent and the child, which is wholly lacking. Okay, and if you incorporate house tree person test, and if you have some drawing analysis with you, you will see that the house is like a claustrophobic cell. You don't have a chance to express yourself. Doors and windows will be shut. So there's no vent out space. So a lot of scribbling activities, journaling, and these activities will help the child, even engaging in vigorous physical exercises. That will release the tension and anger from his body.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing up this.
Ria, there's one more area of concern that I feel. It's media influence, and also that young children at a very young age, I mean, people know about porn and they are, used to watching.
Yes.
Yep. So.
Yes, absolutely. This area, the kind of exposure they have right now, and puberty is kind of setting in much more earlier than required. Why? Because they are exposed to these mediums very, very early in life. It's of course due to the internet, easy access of internet, and they have the phones and they can just browse through anything they want, and one small information they have got, they start researching on it till a time which becomes an addiction for them, which is inappropriate for them. They start reading up certain materials which can give them temporary happiness about certain things. So this of course has backtracked childhood.
Ma'am, there is one more point I would like to discuss. Ma'am, many a times parents lack that open mindset.
Yes.
Which children should be inculcated with. Like when there is a competition, often they are expected to win instead of just embracing the experience. I've seen this in environment too. That lack of open mindset can also create a hurdle later.
Absolutely. The open mindset here has both its advantage and a disadvantage. As you're talking about competitiveness, why do you think it has increased so much as compared to our parents? Why has it increased so much? Why do you think it has increased so much?
more parental competition and more sensitivity of the parents towards the kids' expectations. Like we expect, like this generation is expecting more from their kids. Like our parents didn't give us that attention, we will give it to our kids. But that is going on in a wrong direction. It is going more attention towards the kids, and they are safeguarded more from everything, for which they are not able to face any consequences on this.
Yes. They are like guided at every point of time, whether it's healthy, unhealthy, people will not look into, parents will not look into. They are just blindly, it's like a horse with those blinds on their eyes. Whatever, wherever you're taking, the child has to go. It's become like that. And especially because parents are also established right now. Most of the young parents, those who have very young children, they're already working somewhere. So they expect that the children will even do better than them. So that competition has become very claustrophobic. It is not that the child can grow up on their own, find out their interest, and then do whatever they want to. It is all about competition. अरे उसका तो लड़का ये किया, तुमने क्या किया? That's the major issue which goes on when they're stepping to adolescence even. When they're in class 5 or 6, they start planning their careers. So it's become so much in advance. Not only career planning, everything is in advance. People find it as a pride if children can handle phones. Young children can handle phones very well. They say, "Oh, अरे मेरा बच्चा तो सब कुछ आता है उसको, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, सब कुछ आता है handle करना." But you have to look into the age criteria also. Like, when is it appropriate to introduce these gadgets? When is it appropriate to actually learn about these things? So a lot of parenting work has to be done in order to also cure the child, in order to settle the child. I won't say cure, because they are all children. They have their own phases of growth. But a lot of problem lies with parents as well.
Here, Ria, I would like to add something.
Yes,
even pre-primary or preschools, for that matter, they many a times they have prizes for all of the participants. We don't allow children to accept this defeat from a younger age. अच्छा तू नहीं जीता ठीक है वो, that is not there. So somewhere I remember my younger one going to a preschool, and for 3 years she was getting medals. So I was wondering, and everybody got a medal there.
Yeah.
So somewhere we are missing out and telling them it's okay. You cannot win every time.
Absolutely. That perfectionism is coming into play. I have to be perfect all the time. I have to win all the time. Since they do not face failure, those children who are growing up to be perfectionists, what is happening if they are good at it? What is happening is, if they face failure, it becomes impossible for them to, cope up later on in life. And those children
are not ready,
average, or maybe a little below average, what they are doing is struggling. Their self-esteem goes down the drain. So stark comparison. It is not a blended way children are growing up.
Excuse me,
They're
ma'am.
not accepting negativity actually. Like they cannot accept a no nowadays.
Yes.
Excuse me, ma'am. Can I ask?
Framing it that way actually.
Absolutely, very true.
Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, like there is no any pressure from parents. Even then, the child can be pressurized sometimes, because I have a friend's kid who their parents don't pressure him at all. But he's like, if he don't win, if he fails, he's still under struggle. Actually, they even make him write exams without studying, because he should learn something like failure sometimes. But he's like he'll be very worried. He will not, like, he's just 4th standard. So he will, if he didn't study, he will sit up late and he will cover up, and then only he will attend the exams. He's like very worried if he is getting 1 mark less or something. But they don't put him under any pressure.
Yes,
they just made him participate.
This is what I discussed a few, some time back, that even parents being very cooperative, very lenient, children sometimes have also induced in them that I have to be very good. It may be a natural instinct. It may be something which they are born with also. It is not always that the environment is contributing. It may be some trait which the child is born with.
Like it's from childhood, is like into perfect. Everything needs to be perfect, very clear, planned, everything like that.
Yeah. So there can be, in this case, there can be, group games where he's not being the captain, someone else is appointed the captain. So there are several games where children can be put into groups, the counseling sessions can be group sessions, and then they are given responsibility. If they don't win, it's fine. That's how they will be learning to enjoy rather than burdening themselves with certain responsibilities. Okay, next slide, please. Let's just quickly go through it. We are almost touching an hour. Common disorders I'll be talking about tomorrow. Next slide. You can skip the next slide as well. This I have more or less touched upon. Personal factors, family variables, culture also plays a big role here. Environmental factors and many other influences which are there, peer group and all. Okay, next one. Methods, next slide please. I'm coming to the methods. Many a times we use CBT techniques because it's easier for children to write rather than verbalize. I'll be also doing a first session, how to open up a first session and what we can do in order to make the child comfortable, because most of the children, they'll not be able to verbalize what they're going through or what they're experiencing. So you can aid them in settling down, building rapport, and then calming them to a stage where they start, interacting with you. Apart from that, from the first session, away from that, if we digress a little, there are different types of techniques. CBT is cognitive behavioral technique, which are very commonly used with children. Behavior modifications, I'll be discussing token economy with you all. Special education, I'll not be a very good person to talk to because I'm not a special educator, but different teachers are present for teaching the child in different ways for learning disorders specifically. So in case you have someone coming to you with problems in learning, what I would suggest is recommend the child to some special educator. Alongside, you can always build on self-esteem needs, because that most often is missing. Motivation level, time management, self-esteem, all these are certain things which you can work with these children. Then there is a very interesting medium of play therapy. It's amazing how children take to it. Okay, and since it's play, they are much more free, they are much more natural in expressing. Along with that, we have art therapy, where they'll do a lot of painting, drawing, collages, masks, clay modeling. All these are incorporated in art therapy. Even puppets are incorporated in art and play therapy. I'll be showing you a little bit of sand play therapy because it's extremely effective. It's also cathartic, especially for children, those who are experiencing Asperger's, ADHD, ADD. All these are very cathartic for the children. And next we have filial therapy, which incorporates the family members and many more deeper layers of people around the child. And child-centered or client-centered, if we say, it's more about non-directive techniques. That means you're not going to instruct them to do anything. It would be more of a free play space or a free activity area for the child in order to express themselves. You just do a kind of hand-holding, a kind of observation, which will be required for further intervention. Generally, non-directive is blended with directive. Directive means you are guiding the child whenever required, but most of the time it is non-directive. That means you just let them be who they are, and then once you understand what their dynamics are, you tend to have a counseling framework for the child. Okay, then we have group therapy. Over here, group therapy is extremely effective. I have found it to be one of the most effective ways of handling children, especially for school counselors, because you will have n number of children coming to you at one particular slot, and that the consistency is broken if you have individual children coming to sessions. So what we do is club them together. Maybe they have similar type of issues, and we club them together and give them certain tasks, challenging tasks, certain activities to do, and you would see how they open up. It's wonderful to see them work together. They might also fight amongst each other, but then also they learn from that session what has to be done. How do I problem solve? How can I build my relationship with my peers when I go back to my class or to my home? So it's a wonderful medium. Group therapy is a wonderful medium. I'll be sharing you a few activities through group therapy also. Next slide. Okay, this once we send you this through mail, what you do is list down the 3 different probabilities or the causes which has been highlighted in these 3 case studies. We will start off the session tomorrow with this, and then I will take up the different disorders. Next slide. What we'll be doing tomorrow is childhood concerns and disorders, certain areas where we need to look into. If people are working in school, if you all are working as school counselors, red flag area orientation to the teachers extremely important. Okay, so I'll be telling you what are the red flag areas and where you can look out for, and how you would come to a particular diagnosis. What are the things which you need to know in order to come to a kind of conclusion, and how to start off your first counseling session. So all these things we'll be doing. Can you go back to the first previous slide once? These are the 3 case histories which we'll be sending you via mail, and those who are in the group, we'll be sending you directly there. Okay, so go through these case studies. We'll be splitting up into groups. You have your own observations ready for tomorrow, and then we'll take it further. Like how can one child be different from others, and what can be the causative factors, and what can be the course of action. Okay, so we'll go through this entire activity tomorrow. So it was more of theory today, but we'll be taking you through activities in the next few classes. So keep your stationaries ready, and see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a good interactive session to know about
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much,
ma'am.
for coming
Great
in.
session, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very
See you
informative.
all tomorrow.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much, ma'am. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for the session.
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ma'am, how do I join to the group? Because I'm not part of the group. If there's a
Group
WhatsApp
is only for the ones who had won the certification, ma'am. Otherwise, you'll get a mail from us.
Okay, fine.
And the same link will be there for all the classes. So we are not changing the link, otherwise it becomes very confusing. So the same link will be there for all the days. So you can just join in at 4 p.m. from Monday to Friday.
So ma'am, those who are not in the group, they can attend the 10 classes, 10 sessions
Yes,
continuously?
of course. It's open for all, but you will only get a participation certificate for that.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
मैम अगर लिस्ट में नाम नहीं है तो सर्टिफिकेट नहीं मिलेगा क्या फिर?
Sorry, ma'am?
लिस्ट में नाम नहीं है तो सर्टिफिकेट नहीं मिलेगा?
सर्टिफिकेशन नहीं मिलेगा फाउंडेशन के लिए, पर आपको पार्टिसिपेशन सर्टिफिकेट मिलेगा.
Where do we see if our name is on the list or not?
It's on YouTube, ma'am, on our channel. Emoja, there's a list Excel sheet where you can go and check it out. And you must have got a mail from us if you have won. Okay. But don't worry, you can watch it. This video will also be there on YouTube.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
मैम जो अभी क्वेश्चंस आपने जो केस स्टडीज आपने शेयर करी हैं, we need to prepare that for the tomorrow class?
Yes, you need to just have a note written like what can be the cases or what can be the diagnosis of it. We'll split into groups tomorrow in 3 or 4, and then we'll start discussion.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay. Welcome.
Excuse
Hi,
me, ma'am.
everyone. Yes.
Just one question that if we have won, we are being added to the group, and
Yes.
we'll get the foundation certificate.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
After
you so
you
much. ma'am.
submit your assignments, not just like that.
Yes, ma'am. And the assignment is that the presentation we have to submit,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Bye-bye. See you
Hello.
all.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, actually, my name was there in the list, but I didn't get any mail yet.
Can you just drop us a message, please?
Yeah, I replied
Maybe
to
the mail ID was incorrect, or maybe your WhatsApp. Are you in the WhatsApp group?
On one WhatsApp group, IATD, Emojar.
No, that's not the WhatsApp group, ma'am.
No,
We
I'm
have,
not.
okay, I don't think then you have one.
Okay.
If you can just check your name in our YouTube video.
Yeah, it was just Deepa, but there was not last name. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you can just drop us a message, we'll check back.